Good evening, everyone, and welcome to HFFC's monthly meeting, our featured speaker program. So tonight, it's April, and we are focusing on energy conservation. But more than that, we're focusing on local action. This is where, in this world that we live in, we have to think to ourselves, what can we do locally? How can we make a difference? And I know each and every one of us is thinking about that. And one place where we can make a difference is in supporting local initiatives for energy conservation and energy resources, reducing the cost of our energy in Connecticut, which is a big deal for everyone. So tonight, I'm really pleased that we have with us Peter Millman, who is the Vice President for People's Action for Clean Energy, also known as PACE. PACE is a public health and environmental organization formed in 1973 by a group of concerned citizens. One of their projects is 100% Connecticut, an alternative to nuclear energy and fossil fuel. This project develops local viable plans for individual towns and the state to help us become 100% renewable energy. So Peter has been working on clean energy initiatives for over 10 years. In 2015, he started Connecticut Green Energy News. He's led a number of PACE initiatives, notably community choice aggregation, which is what he's going to talk about to us tonight. He has a BA from RISD in architecture and urban planning, a master's in urban planning from University of Washington. He's very active in his hometown of Mansfield, including the development of stores, downtown. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Peter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Anita. I wanted to start by saying that this all started for me around 2018. I first heard about community choice aggregation, which was started in Massachusetts in around 1997. I heard about it, and I thought it sounded pretty good. I began asking around all the energy folks I knew, most of whom I thought knew more than me, and they did. But no one had heard of it. The more I learned, the more I liked. And I kept asking myself, if it's good enough for Massachusetts and New York and a few other states, why not here? That's the question I kept asking. Why not here? I worked on it pretty hard in 2019, 20, 21, and then I let it drop until 2024, really. But the question kept at me, which is, why not here? So community power for Connecticut is how I've thought of this, partly because New Hampshire, which is a CCA state, calls it community power. I think it's a good name. But it's also called community choice aggregation. That's pretty much the generic name, usually shortened to CCA. It's also called municipal aggregation and municipal electric aggregation. And there are a few other names that I'm not even going to bother mentioning. For Connecticut, it would be a way for Connecticut municipalities to play a much larger role than they now can in the energy transition by letting them help lower electricity supply rates and develop local energy projects and programs. And I'll explain a little more what that means. So just a few facts about community power, community choice. CCA exists in one form or another in about 10 states, most notably for us, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, California. At its root, it allows municipalities to become the default electricity suppliers for all their residents and businesses, except for those who opt out. If you're in a state that enables community choice aggregation and you're in a municipality that's interested, you might go through a year-long process. And if at the end of that process, the town decided to go forward, all small businesses and residents would become part of the group, except for those who opt out. Now, there's more than one model, but California and New Hampshire have adopted a much more ambitious model than the other states. In these states, a joint power agency is established, and it's a key to allowing municipalities to do more. It's worth mentioning that no taxpayer funds are used in these programs. Revenues come from the sale of electricity, and these revenues can help fund local solar and battery projects and local programs such as energy efficiency, demand response, and EV charger deployment. This is all in addition to, not instead of, state-funded programs. As a general way of thinking about this, it's a way of introducing more competition and innovation into the energy sector, and the energy sector could use more competition and innovation. So just to make sure we're sort of on the same page for some of this, this is an Eversource electric bill, but I think it's the same as for UI, which is that there are 4 parts. There's the supply, that's electricity as a commodity. And you can choose who's going to supply your electricity, either Eversource UI, depending on your location, or a third-party supplier. But you're also always going to be paying something for the electricity that is transported interstate on transmission lines. You're also going to be paying for the local delivery on poles and wires and transformers that you see outside your house or business. And then there's a public benefits charge, which is a whole nother pot. It's been in the news. It's kind of complicated in the sense that there are a good 40 or so charges underneath that umbrella. But when I talk about electricity supply, I'm only talking about electricity supply, not transmission, local delivery, or public benefits charges. So here are some competing models of the status quo, CCA, and the more ambitious form. Over on the left, all the blue boxes, is pretty much how things are now. Your investor-owned utility, I live in Eversource territory. I don't know whether most of you are in UI or Eversource, but they really do 3 major things. One is to procure power, go out and get that electricity as a commodity in advance of a rate period. Then the main thing that they're doing is owning, operating, and maintaining the distribution grid. That's what they're really paid for. And then they also do some customer-facing programs like administering energy efficiency programs, demand response programs. They read meters, they can help design rates. So that's the status quo over on the left. In the middle column, this would be CCA light, or the simple form of CCA, or sometimes it's called the Massachusetts model because that's where it began, or the broker model because energy brokers are involved. And in this case, let's say a Massachusetts town, if it decides to become a CCA, to join the CCA program, they would go out and ask a broker to say, we'd like you to help us get a better supply rate than what the investor-owned utility is offering. And by the way, often they'll say, we'd like you to give us some options, give us ratepayers some options in terms of more renewable energy content than what the renewable portfolio standard requires. So many states require a certain level of renewable energy as part of the supply. So that is the simple model. The investor-owned utility continues to own and operate the distribution grid, and they also continue to do customer programs as before. So over on the right is community power, as it's called in New Hampshire, and I hope it will be called that here. And this is sometimes called the California or New Hampshire, but probably best as the JPA or Joint Power Agency model. In this case, by creating this nonprofit energy organization, the Joint Power Agency, they can bring the procurement process in-house and capture some of the revenues that go on in the course of buying and selling electricity, buying wholesale and selling retail. That provides the revenues for doing all sorts of things in towns that participate. The investor-owned utility continues to own and operate the distribution grid. And then at the bottom right-hand corner, the Joint Power Agency will sometimes take over at least some of the customer-facing programs. For example, maybe administering the energy efficiency funds. To make this a little more real to you, I wanted to introduce you to the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which is the Joint Power Agency operating in New Hampshire. A little history about New Hampshire and community power. In 2019, the New Hampshire legislature passed a bill enabling community power. In 2019, also, that allowed municipalities and counties to come together and form a coalition organizing group. And that's when the real work started. That allowed these towns, and I think it was just 4 towns and 1 county came together and worked to sort of define, lay out in great detail what the best practices are for their future joint power agency. In 2021, they worked for 2 years, and in 2021, the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire came into being as a nonprofit corporation. Interestingly, in that same year, Eversource, which operates in New Hampshire also, backed a bill that would have gutted the legislation passed back in 2019. Luckily, the advocates were able to beat back that bill. In 2023, CPCNH began purchasing electricity on behalf of the 10 New Hampshire towns that were members. To make this even more real to you, I wanted to play this 3-minute video from the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. I think it'll give you a better sense of what I'm talking about.
CPCNH is a nonprofit organization that is helping communities meet their energy needs. We're providing innovation to those communities, and we're making sure that their voices are heard down in Congress.
So the coalition is the only organization in the state that was founded specifically for this purpose, to do community power for cities and towns, by cities and towns. It's a transformative way for communities to have a seat at the table in the decisions about where they're getting their power from, where the revenues from the sale of electricity are going to, and how they can have some control over that and use those revenues for future benefits.
We're a grassroots movement, but are working with some of the best professionals in the industry to bring state-of-the-art energy services to New Hampshire communities.
Not all communities are the same. You know, some communities are going to want to emphasize certain things. Some are going to want to go with as low cost as possible to make sure that, you know, let's face it, some folks are on fixed incomes and you want to try to keep those costs as low as possible.
We wanted to offer the best energy price we could to our residents and businesses.
The renewable has always been the goal of the community.
Local control is also a big consideration for us.
It feels like I'm a part of something that's very innovative and exciting.
And it allows me to represent my community better.
Each individual town doesn't have to figure all this out on their own. They can benefit from the experiences of the communities that have already started, and we can share professional resources. So each town doesn't have to build up that internal capacity.
It's pretty straightforward for new towns that want to participate in these programs. There's a full suite of services for planning and launching these programs.
CPCNH definitely gives you the tools and the resources to get a program started up at an expedited rate. The savings we've received from community power are astounding to me.
There's now 50 cities and towns working together through this coalition statewide. It's 25%, approaching 30% of the state's populations. So there is a lot of buying power across all the communities, and we see more and more communities signing up every day now that the model's sort of been proven out by the first movers.
I can't think of a time anywhere in New England where you've seen this kind of innovation that's happening. We are a member services, community-driven organization. The only reason we exist is to give value back to communities. If you're thinking about changing or moving to a community power aggregation or taking control of your energy needs, CPCNH helps make that process easy for you.
So just a few takeaways from the video. Again, it's the revenues from the sale of the electricity of electricity that provides the financial basis for future projects and programs, very localized programs and projects. Second, communities can offer a variety of rate options. Now, you can actually do this in other CCA forms, but they're particularly focused on that in New Hampshire and other community power states. Third, member towns and cities don't have to do it alone. This is the whole point of community power and having a joint power agency. The CPCNH provides professional resources and the opportunity for communities to collaborate. Sometimes I've heard from people in Connecticut saying, I mean, my town couldn't do this. And my reaction is, that's the whole point. You don't have to do it alone. Mansfield doesn't have to do it alone, or Simsbury or Wilton or anybody else, because it's complex stuff. And finally, CPCNH enables advocacy at the state level. This is very exciting to me. If towns could play a much larger role, then towns would also want to play a larger role at the state level. And I think we would be more successful in our advocacy in the State House.
I want to thank you for a very interesting and informative evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
If you enjoyed this video, you might like one of the similar videos above, or one of the other science, art, legislative, entertainment, and humanist videos from HFFC's YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button above.